All right, today we're diving into something truly massive, the GenomeIndia project. This is a mission that set out to map the DNA of an entire nation, and in the process, it's set to completely change the future of medicine for more than 1 billion people. So let's get right into it.
But first, let me ask you a question. What if the very foundation of modern medicine, our whole understanding of the human genome, was missing a huge piece of the puzzle? What if the human in human genome actually, well, mostly just meant people of European descent?
For decades, that wasn't a what if, it was just reality. The global genomic data we had was overwhelmingly Eurocentric, and the consequences of that are pretty profound. It means our ability to diagnose diseases, to figure out how people will respond to drugs, to develop new treatments, all of that was built on a dataset that basically ignored the genetic diversity of most of the world. It created this huge global blind spot.
And maybe nowhere on Earth was that blind spot bigger than in India. I mean, the country is home to over 4,600 distinct endogamous groups. Now, what does that mean? These are communities that have married within their own specific social, cultural, or even geographic group for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. And that has created this incredibly unique genetic landscape where certain genetic variations, some of them linked to diseases, are way more common. It's a literal treasure trove of human diversity.
So here's the bottom line. Imagine the human genome is like this giant library of blueprints for how to build a person. For the longest time, an entire, absolutely critical chapter, the one on India's 1.4 billion people, was pretty much empty. And this wasn't just a small oversight, it was a fundamental gap in our collective knowledge.
So, okay, you've got this massive problem. What do? Well, you launch one of the most ambitious genetic mapping projects ever attempted. And that brings us to the GenomeIndia mission. And when I say ambitious, I mean it. This was a colossal undertaking. Just look at this map. 20 different institutions from all across the country collaborated, creating this incredible network to collect samples from practically every corner of the nation. This wasn't some small lab project. It was a full-on, coordinated nationwide effort to finally write that missing chapter.
And they were so smart about how they did it. The team didn't just go out and collect random samples. No, they were super strategic. They carefully sampled from 83 distinct population groups. That includes 30 tribal and 53 non-tribal communities. And get this, to really capture the full picture, they even made sure to represent the 4 major language families, which is a really clever proxy for the deep genetic diversity you find in India.
Okay, so they had the mission, they had the strategy. But how do you actually go from a person's blood sample to a massive, coherent digital database? Well, the journey from person to petabytes is a pretty fascinating story all on its own. Now, this whole workflow looks pretty complex, right? And that's because it is. If you follow the path from left to right, you can see this super rigorous journey, starting with a volunteer giving their consent, to their sample getting processed, all the way to it becoming a tiny part of this massive dataset. It's just a testament to the incredible scientific precision that was involved here.
Let's just break that down into 4 main steps to make it a bit simpler. First, you have over 20,000 volunteers who stepped up and provided samples. Incredible. Then, the DNA from just over 10,000 of those samples was fully sequenced. Third, and this is so important, the data went through these insane quality checks. Different labs were actually double-checking each other's work to make sure everything was super accurate. And finally, all that information, a staggering 4.5 petabytes of data, I mean, that's enough to store like 1 million movies, was processed and archived ready for scientists to dive in.
And so, after all that unbelievable work, what did they find? Okay, this is where it gets really, really exciting. What secrets were actually hiding inside that genetic treasure trove?
The first number you gotta remember is the foundation of it all, 10,074. That's 10,074 complete human genomes, a huge, high-quality dataset that finally represents the real diversity of India.
Now, from those genomes, they found something just astonishing. About 130 million unique genetic variants. That's 130 million brand new data points for the book of human genetics. Just wow. But hang on, this is the real showstopper. 65% of those variants, the vast majority, are what's called ultra-rare, and they had never, ever been recorded by science before. So this wasn't just about filling in a gap. It was like discovering a whole new world of human genetic diversity that we never even knew existed. So we've got all this incredible new data. That's great, but what does it actually mean for real people? Well, the impact is nothing short of remapping modern medicine as we know it.
This new reference database is a complete game changer. For the first time, it makes true precision medicine a real possibility for South Asians. Imagine knowing ahead of time if a common heart medication will work for you, or if you need a totally different dose, all based on your unique genetics. It's going to help doctors diagnose rare diseases way faster and build better research tools that are actually relevant to this population. Plus, that biobank of over 20,000 samples, that's a gift that will keep on giving to science for decades.
And at the end of the day, it really just comes down to this. This quote from the researchers themselves, it says it all. For families who have been dealing with rare diseases, this project could finally mean an end to that long, painful, and often expensive road to just getting a diagnosis. It's about real people, and it's about changing real lives.
So, the GenomeIndia project has filled one of the biggest gaps we had in our genetic knowledge, and it leaves us with a pretty powerful thought to end on. By mapping the DNA of just this one nation, how many millions of lives could ultimately be changed? And maybe, just maybe, what other massive blind spots in our understanding are still out there, just waiting for us to shine a light on them? Thanks for watching.